Now, for a closer look at the situation in the Middle East, we're joined today by Professor Hassan Geon, visiting professor at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Professor Geon, thanks for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, U.S. President Donald Trump has agreed to pull back on threats against Iran for 2 weeks if the Strait of Hormuz is opened. After Pakistan pushed for a temporary ceasefire. So he's been setting a series of deadlines only to pull back at the last minute. What do you make of these latest developments?
Actually, what we are seeing here is a classical pattern of coercive bargaining. Trump has repeatedly used maximalist threats and short deadlines and then stepped back at the last moment. So this is to preserve room for negotiations. So in that sense, the latest pause does not necessarily show that weakness in Trump's side. It shows that he is just trying to combine diplomacy with pressure. So at the same time, this approach has some costs because when a leader repeatedly issues ultimatums and then revises them, allies as well as adversaries may misinterpret this as the deadlines are not fixed, but rather negotiable. So that can reduce deterrence credibility while keeping diplomacy alive. So I think my assessment is that this is not a peace breakthrough yet. It is a tactical de-escalation centered by mutual exhaustion, energy market pressure, and third-party mediation, especially Pakistan. So Trump's latest move suggests that Washington will still use leverage and not all-out escalation. The 2 weeks window should be understood as bargaining interval, not as an evidence that the core dispute has been totally settled.
I see. And Iran has also agreed to this 2-week ceasefire in the war, and it said it would negotiate with the United States in Pakistan starting Friday. So what does this tell us about Iran's strategy going forward?
Well, Iran's acceptance of a 2-week ceasefire and its agreement to start talk with the United States in Islamabad, this shows that Tehran is pursuing a strategy of what we call controlled de-escalation without political surrender. So Iranian officials have made it clear that the ceasefire is tactical, not final. In fact, Iran's National Security Council said explicitly that this does not signify the end of the war and warned that it remained ready to retaliate if strikes renewed against Iran. What this tells us is that Iran appears to be trying to do 3 things at once. So one is it wants to reduce immediate military pressure and avoid further damage at this moment to the country. Second, it wants to shift battlefield into diplomatic arena where it may be able to extract concessions from the United States. Concessions like sanctions or security guarantees or maritime arrangements. Third is it wants to preserve its image of resistance by presenting the ceasefire not as a concession but as a pause entered from a position of endurance, not endurance and continued deterrence from Iran's side.
I see. So de-escalation without surrender. And there are also reports that Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, is in critical condition after the same strike that killed his father on February 28th and may be unable to take part in decision-making. So if that's true, how might this affect the course of this war?
Well, we have to be careful about these reports because the claim that is not firmly verified that Mojtaba Khamenei has not appeared publicly and that there are widespread rumors that he may have been wounded. Iranian officials, meanwhile, have publicly denied that he is incapacitated. If the reports are true, however, the likely effect would be a shift from personalized leadership toward more fragmented or more security-driven decision-making, especially by the Revolutionary Guard and other hardline institutions. In such a situation, wars can become more dangerous because fewer actors have the political authority to compromise, and the military organizations often gain greater influence over escalation decisions. So the main implication would not necessarily be immediate collapse of Iran. Rather, it could produce a command and control problem. slower political decision-making, less coherent signaling to foreign mediators, and greater risk that battlefield logic overtake diplomatic logic. So if the leadership is truly incapacitated, that could make the war harder to end, even if both sides say they want negotiations.
I see. And Professor Geon, before I let you go, President Trump has been criticizing Pacific allies, including South Korea, for not doing enough in this war. How should countries like South Korea respond at this point?
South Korea should respond with strategic restraint and not, and I say not again, not rhetorical defensiveness. So Seoul interests are real, but specific. It's like energy security, maritime trade, protection of Korean shipping, and prevention of a wider regional war. It should support de-escalation and protect the sea lane through diplomatic and logistical cooperation and strengthen emergency energy procurement, but avoid pulled into open-ended military commitment that exceeds its core interest. In fact, Seoul actually is moving in that direction very well. The South Korean government has dispatched a special envoy to Kazakhstan, Oman, and Saudi Arabia to secure energy supplies. And it has lined up alternative crude and key industrial input because more than 60% of its crude oil and more than half of its naphtha imports usually transit in Hormuz. So that is a rational response for a trade-dependent state facing an energy shock. South Korea should frame its policy around burden sharing without entrapment in this war. For middle powers like South Korea, the best response is not to mirror Washington's rhetoric, but to contribute where they are strongest, like logistics, diplomacy, sanctions, coordination, shipping control, shipping protection, and supply chain resilience.
I see. All right, Professor Geon, thanks so much for taking the time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.